Pour yourself a cold one.
Let's drink them, huh?
And listen to Ross Tucker break down the top college prospects on another tasty edition of The College Draft.
Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years, bunch of podcasts. Already did my Power Rankings Tuesday for the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Pretty much all of them are 30 minutes or less. Try to give you your average commute time, average workout time, give you a chance to listen and get a little bit informed. We've got the Even Money Betting Podcast for the NFL games a little bit later today. Fantasy Feast will be tomorrow, but this is the College Draft Podcast. I like to say it's 3 podcasts in one because we talk about the biggest games in college football. We talk about the best prospects in college football in those biggest games. And my man Emory makes his picks against the spread. Emory, of course, is Emory Hunt at FBall Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube, which is where he first became a star. Now he's everywhere. And then footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide. That's how you get the best draft guide in the business that has legit breakdowns, evals of everyone. And I mean everyone. Do you ever, Emory, have like a panic attack? Is there anybody ever like drafted that you didn't know about or you didn't evaluate? I figure that like knowing the way you are and how you know everybody, that must like kill you.
It kills me when it's not when it's a small school guy that I didn't have in my guide. Because a lot of times you have these guys from, FBS programs. You may have the third guard that's a senior on a team get drafted, and you're like, all right, well, I didn't have that clearly. You probably focus on the guy that was starting, the guy that played a lot, and here comes the third string guy who was a senior that gets drafted. I'm okay with that. But when it's a guy from a school that's supposed to be in my lane that I don't have, I'm like, damn. Because everybody would then hit you up. Hey, Emory, who's this guy that we just drafted? Who's that guy? And I'm like, well, shit, I don't have a report on him. Like, damn, that's the one that usually bothers me.
Got it. So you're good. You're okay if it's like a Power 5 backup O lineman that somehow got drafted because he had good measurables, but it's you want to be the small school guy. I love it.
Yeah, and
you are, man. Every small school conference like hires you to do stuff for them. It's unbelievable.
Hey, man, listen. You know what's been fascinating is watching the growth of this the Hunt Report on CBS Sports that comes out every Thursday, where I spotlight a handful of small college prospects that are under the radar. Guys that may not be on the Senior Bowl watch list or the Shrine Bowl 1000. So I do a lot of deep digging, and these schools appreciate it. And, you start to see the schools realize that, hey, man, if the czar is talking about us, then we're doing pretty doggone good. And 9 times out of 10, I start to see some of these guys creep up on lists and watch lists. Because, again, that's what it's all about. Hey, I'm introducing you to some guys that I've watched that I think can play. And it's all about pushing the envelope forward in terms of making sure we're not just talking about the same 5. How many different scout reports? How many scout reports we gonna see from Bryce Young or about Will Levis? Like, man, like we get it. Like it's like overkill. Find somebody else. Who else is? Let's talk about day 2 or day 3 or something like that, man. But that's why I'm here.
Curious to talk about a couple of guys for Syracuse and Clemson. Clemson, big favorites against the undefeated Orange. I've been hearing about this O-lineman for Syracuse, Matthew Bergeron. Tell me about him.
He's very good on the move, man. I think he is excellent in the zone blocking scheme, has good footwork, good athleticism, reach blocks rather well. He's a left tackle. I think he can play that at the pro level. So I do think he has a lot of athletic traits and checks all the boxes that you want to see. And arguably is a big reason why they're able to run the football the way they do up there with Dino Baber. So, yeah, he's someone that's going to have his hands full tonight, or not tonight, but in this ball game because of the matchup. That's why I like to kind of pair the matchups in certain games, because if he's having a good day, that means he's blocking some pretty good edge rushers rather well for Clemson.
What about Emory? A couple of edge guys for Clemson, KJ Henry and Xavier Thomas. I'm especially interested in Xavier Thomas. I did the Army Bowl. He was in it the same year as Trevor Lawrence, and he was like the guy as a D end, and he looked awesome. Like he looked like an NFL D end in high school, and was so hyped up. But here he is, I guess year 5 at Clemson, which you just don't see very often.
Especially at that position. Usually if guys can go, they're gone in 3 years, like i.e. Will Anderson, right? But you like that he's back healthy. He missed like the first 5 games of this season, dealing with an injury he suffered in the spring. But he is so twitched up, man. He is as twitched up as you want the position to be. And it's funny because when you watch him at his full strength, you almost get the perception that he is lining up even with the offensive tackle. That's how much of a jump he gets on the football. It's like, man, this dude got to be offside. Like, no, he is explosive off the ball. And again, I could see him as someone that can play with his hand in the dirt, or as an outside edge rusher, a TJ Watt type of a guy, where he could just go, man. And I'm glad he's back, because it just adds to the explosiveness of that defensive unit. Now, Henry is on the other side, where I think he's more of the traditional contained rusher. He's more of a power guy. He's a little bit taller, 6'4", about 260. So he's more of your classic defensive end. But he does have the ability to not only win with power, but he shows a little nuance in terms of being able to slip certain blocks and, dip that shoulder and collapse toward the quarterback. But he's benefiting from what Thomas does on the other side, which is going to make them both excel, when you also add the fact that you have Brian Bresee in the middle as well. So I like their defensive line. That's why this O-line, D-line matchup for Syracuse is the one they got to win.
Clemson's laying 13.5, Emory. 13.5 big ones, just under 2 touchdowns. What are you thinking?
I'm going to take Syracuse in the points, man. Clemson is a good team this year. They're getting very good play from DJ Uiagalelei. But this is one of those games where I feel like Dino Babers' team tends to show up, and they understand what's at stake, man. If they beat Clemson and take care of business, they have another big game next week as well. They could essentially write their own ticket in terms of, are we talking about Syracuse getting into the college football playoff now? So I think this is a huge game. 13 points is a lot in this matchup against this team. Now they're going to bank on Schrader not turning the ball over like he did last weekend. They can't overcome that against a team like Clemson. And I feel like we'll see the best version of Syracuse on the road down there in Death Valley. I'm excited about this game. There's a lot of orange, but I do feel like we just see the best version of Syracuse. They're not going to get beat by more than 13 points.
Speaking of a lot of orange, I felt like it was Syracuse playing against the Commanders last Thursday night. In that Thursday night game, the Bears looked like Syracuse out there. When I think Syracuse, upstate New York, I think about my time in Western New York. My beer, Emory, was Labatt Blue Light. Football season means it is Labatt Blue Light season. And there's no better way to watch your team on game day than with the pristine Canadian goodness of a cold Labatt Blue Light in hand. Stock up and be the MVP of your tailgate and share a Labatt on game day with your crew. Always enjoy responsibly. Love me some Labatt Blue Light. Love me some beer on a college football Saturday.
I got to tell you, Ross.
What's that?
Quick thing about Labatt Blue. I had Labatt Blue when I went to the Grey Cup in Toronto. And it was, halftime show was Justin Bieber. It was a Justin Bieber concert at halftime. So I went to the Grey Cup in Toronto. And afterwards I had the game was at it was at 6:00. So you're done about 9. And, just hanging out in the streets of Toronto, sitting at the bar. I think the Maple Leafs were playing I think they were in the playoffs at the time too. Just sitting there having with Maple Leafs fans having a big ass Labatt Blue beer and one of those big Keurig type. It was a big set down at the bar. So I'm very familiar with Labatt Blue.
I love it. That was my big drink of choice in Buffalo. Still love it. What about UCLA? They're getting 6 points on the road in Oregon. A little surprised by that. The way UCLA's played this year, the sports book, DraftKings, still a lot of respect for the Ducks.
Yeah, it's interesting because how much do we trust Oregon still? And it's almost like when you saw Clemson rank 4th, you like, whoa, hold on. Like, I know they've been winning, but 4th best team in the country. Oregon, I believe, is a top 10 squad right now. Like, something does not compute. I'm definitely taking UCLA in the points here because they have the better quarterback. But Zach Charbonnet, to me, is running really well. He reminds me a lot of Ryan Matthews when he was coming out of Fresno State. Just a very efficient runner, good feel for the run game, knows how to make the moves that need to be made, and they're productive, they're functional. He's not over the top. He's just a good overall back that you could plug right out of Pasadena and plug him right into your starting lineup as a tailback, and he can hold down the run game. So I like the way this kid has run. I've liked him since he was at Michigan, and I love what he's doing right now for UCLA.
Is Chip Kelly back? Like, is the Chip Kelly offense, is Chip Kelly back as a football genius, football guru? I think, don't they have like the oldest team in college football? They're all like 23, 24-year-olds. DTR has been there forever. I think Chip realized that can be a competitive advantage. Just have smarter, more mature guys that are more experienced.
Why do you think BYU is always held to play? Because they're older, they're more experienced, they have a little bit more grown man strength than the average college team. UCLA is doing the same thing. And what I've always liked about Chip Kelly, and what doesn't get talked about, is how dedicated he is to the run game. All his teams can run the heck out the football. Whether it was at Oregon, UCLA, with the Eagles, the run game is first and foremost what he does well, even back at New Hampshire also. So I love that about Kelly. I love the fact that he will always like hang his hat on the run game first, and that's why they have success. Now, Oregon will need to, one, stop the run, and because that's going to be key, you look at their edge player, DJ Johnson, who's a terrific athlete because he was once a tight end for the Oregon Ducks, and now he's playing exclusively defensive end. So there's still some growth there, but you like his frame. He's 6'4", about 270. Still trying to fill things out from a nuance perspective, but the athleticism is there, and you like the fact that he's able to get to certain places. He's able to play the run away, so he's able to chase that down. He's able to do a great job in dropping back in the coverage because, again, he was a tight end, so he's not awkward in space, so he can do a lot, and I think he can bring a lot of work-withable tools to an NFL team.
Kansas State is, so by the way, if you missed it, Emory said he's got UCLA and the 6 points. So he's got UCLA in the points, Syracuse in the points. Kansas State is getting 3.5 at TCU. TCU just keeps winning, man. TCU beat Kansas. TCU beat Oklahoma State. These are like close, hard-fought games late, but TCU keeps getting it done. Let's start with K-State running back Deuce Vaughn. I know you love this dude. I like when I see highlights of him as a lead blocker. Like, he's not afraid to get after people.
Right. He has I hate to sound overly scouty, but he has a thick lower half where he's a thickly built short guy, and I'm pretty sure he probably has the only accurate listing of his height and weight on a college athletics website, because you can't fudge 5'6", 180, 185 or whatever it is. He's built how he's built, and he's been built that way his whole life, so he knows how to play that way. Reminds me a lot of Quentin Griffin, that played at Oklahoma, that had a cup of coffee with the Broncos. I thought he was going to be the next star for the Broncos in that Mike Shanahan offense. I don't know why he didn't work out for the Broncos, but this is what I see when I see Quentin Griffin. It's funny because they both wore 22. But Deuce Vaughn is someone that presses the hole properly, is not overly jittery unnecessarily. He does so when he has to, but he always tends to run through arm tackles and power through and move the pile. So he's a strong runner despite being a shorter, squatty guy. He also shows up in pass pro, not afraid to get in there and pick up a blitz. He doesn't try to, the old Ole cut blocks that most running backs like to do. He's going to stand in there and take the shot or deliver the blow. And he's also a very good receiver out of the backfield. So he does a lot of things rather well. And I will be interested to see where he goes, as a pro, because I know pro teams will look at him and say, well, yeah, but the team that gets him and pairs him either with a back or, hey, we're just going to lean it. Kind of like how the Chargers use Austin Eckler. I think that could be his role as a pro player. They're just as strong, just as competent in the pass pro, and just as competent in the passing game. So I like Deuce Vaughn.
What about this receiver everybody's talking about from TCU, Quentin Johnson?
He's built a lot like Metroid. Got those long mechanical arms, and just that, just the way he moves down the field. It's funny to watch him play because I feel like, I don't know if you see this, Ross, but I feel like he reminds me a lot of Kevin White when he was at West Virginia.
West Virginia.
Yeah. Stack receivers, one of those guys that stack DBs and accelerate. But the catching of the football, and while he does a lot of really good catches, I feel like he's a cradler at times. Like, he is not a smooth, easy, just pluck the ball and keep it moving. I feel like he has to, catch it and make sure he secures it before he can get upfield. Or if it's a deep ball, you don't see him just fluidly over the shoulder, or he's going to jump and get it and it's going to make it an acrobatic catch, which is fine. But, those are some questions I have about his game. But in terms of the playmaking ability and the rack skills, you like that. You like that he has the ability to play above the rim and be a high point guy inside the red zone. He has good acceleration and good speed and good rack skills. But his catching, I think, is a little bit, and it's from a technical perspective, I feel like he tends to body catch too often or cradle too often. And that could limit some rack opportunities for him as a pro.
What do you got? Kansas State getting 3.5. It's at TCU.
We go from all orange to all purple. And, I feel like this game is going to be like a classic first iteration of the Big 12 that we grew up watching, Ross, where that transition from the Big 8 and the Southwest Conference. They were playing physical football. They were the SEC of the Midwest. I feel like we're going to get some of that in this ball game because TCU and Kansas State both play very good defense. So I'm still rocking with Kansas State until proven otherwise. I just love their element in special teams. I think that's going to be the difference here. So I'm rocking with Kansas State.
Love it. So Emory also likes Kansas State and the points. A lot of times the Big 12, there's a lot of touchdowns. And if you love touchdowns like I do, how about Sling TV? Are you kidding me? You can get all the TV you love for a price you'll actually love at Sling TV. Forget about all the high prices, endless contracts. Sling is the most valuable option when it comes to finding your favorite channels with the best deal for sports, news, entertainment. They have the best live TV content all in one place, all at the lowest price. And you can catch every touchdown every Sunday thanks to NFL Red Zone, which is available on Sling Blue Plus Sports Extra. Again, every touchdown live as it happens. You all know about the Red Zone. Please, I hope you do. Every Sunday afternoon with NFL Red Zone on Sling. For a limited time, get Sling Blue and add on Sports Extra with NFL Red Zone for half off your first month. Regular price is $46. They're getting it to you for $23. That's right. You get the best deal on Red Zone. So you can catch all the touchdowns at the lowest price with Sling TV. Visit sling.com/DraftKings to sign up today. Ole Miss, still undefeated, right? Ole Miss is rolling at LSU. Even though Ole Miss is undefeated, they are underdogs. They're getting 1.5 on the road at LSU, Emory.
I like LSU here in this spot, man. And here's why. The only team that gave it before it got out of hand, LSU was able to slow down some Tennessee, and they were able to move the football until the receivers just didn't show up that day. Had drop after drop after drop, kill drives. They go for it on fourth down. They don't get it. Next thing you know, Tennessee airs it out, touchdown, and that changes the whole tide of the game, right? But when you go back and watch them against up-tempo Mississippi State, they were the Mississippi State stoppers. You watch it how they played at Florida's run game. They were able to curtail that a little bit and really show the offense can keep the pace. And if it wasn't for Anthony Richardson's ability to just rip the heart out of the defense's chest because of his amazing ability in the run game, LSU had a significant lead. So I'm saying all that to say this. Ole Miss has a great run game. Their run game is phenomenal. LSU, let's say pound for pound, can slow down their run game. They don't have the difference maker at quarterback. Dart is playing solid, but Dart is also, to me, the liability on offense. Outside of what they have at receiver, they do have a great receiving core, but I do like Jonathan Mingo. Mingo is someone that's just a little bit more fluid, can play, I know people make fun of me for using these terms, but that's the only way I see it because that's what I grew up on. He can play split end or flanker, X or Z, whatever you want to call it, every lingo you want to use. He could play either one of those outside receiver positions. He's good short. He's good deep. They're going to have to find ways to get him the football on the move because LSU also can match up on the outside because they have tremendous talent at cornerback. So I think LSU has the defense to slow down this offense enough to where they get the win. So I do like LSU to win this game, which would set up a huge, because quiet as kept, LSU is still tied for first in the SEC West. The only SEC game they've lost was to Tennessee, who's on the other side. We're still looking at an LSU team that could possibly get in the SEC title game, right? So I like LSU to win here. It sets up a big game next week, I believe, against Bama, or their bye week before Bama. Bama usually plays like Mercer or someone like that before they go into another SEC game. But I like LSU at the spot because Ali Gay, I think, will have his way with the offensive line of Ole Miss. I think I love throwing out old school names because I don't just want to inform the folks, but I also want to educate the folks, because a lot of these people are since 2006 football fans. Like, with the advent of fantasy football and the advent of the Red Zone channel and the advent of, people just looking at football through the prism of numbers on a sheet or the plotted data points on a post game, throwing chart. Ali Gay, football happened prior to 2006 and prior to all these next gen stats and all that stuff. What I was trying to say, but Ali Gay reminds me a lot of Sean Jones. Big, heavy-handed guy, puts those paws on you, and you really go backwards. So his power rush is ridiculous. And so now that LSU hopefully has figured out that Harold Perkins is the next Micah Parsons and leave him on the field and let him be a difference maker and disruptor from whatever position you want to play, because he can play anywhere on defense. He can play an edge rusher. He can play a linebacker. He can even play a strong safety if you want him to. Ali Gay is a guy that I've been talking about a lot on this show because he's so strong. He's so heavy-handed. He's a disruptor up front. I think he's going to be a big reason why LSU definitely wins this ball game.
Got it. Interesting. Love it. A little bonus game. Friday night. Harvard, Princeton. First place in the Ivy League on the line. ESPNU, 7 o'clock. And I haven't seen a line. All I'm telling people is watch the game. There's a couple legit NFL prospect receivers. Yasavas for Princeton's a freak. The other one's more productive, Classy for Princeton. And then for Harvard, Wimberly is a really good player. That game should be awesome.
I have it right here. The over-under is 49.5, and Harvard is a 1.5 point favorite.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Interesting. We're the underdogs. That's right. Good to know because I'm going to text Fitzpatrick and Juszczyk and try to get a bet going with those guys.
Because Steve Verbit, he was there since you was there.
He recruited me.
So about his defensive prowess, right? These dudes have given up outside of last week, prior to the Brown game, they were giving up 1.9 yards a rush and 5.5 yards an attempt and only 9 points a game. That's why I was shocked that Princeton gave up over 17 points to Brown. They gave up 19 last week. So it's time to break up the coach staff because they're crumbling, right? But you watch how good defensively they are. Harvard will have to play its best game offensively. And we know Aiden Bourget, a really good running back for Harvard, good game breaker, right? But if they can't run and allow Princeton just to focus on Wimberly, I hate that. I don't know how healthy Keaton Oderman is, because if you have Wimberly and Oderman, dynamic duo at wide receiver. But Princeton, to me, because of how they can, throw the football, because of how they can play defense, they really make things difficult for people on defense. I'm rocking with the Tigers on this one. I know I can't give a prediction when I do the Ivy League preview, but on this show, I'll give you that prediction. I do like Princeton over Harvard here.
Man, I hope so. I'm too emotionally invested to make a pick, but man, I hope you are right. Should be a good one Friday night. Check him out at FBall Game Plan on Twitter. Obviously, a lot of you watch us, youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL. Check out Football Game Plan on YouTube as well. And of course, get the draft guide. Sign up for it now so you don't have to worry about it later. footballgameplan.com/2023 draft guide. Other than that, the keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for listening to the College Draft Podcast. Make sure to also subscribe to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Fantasy Feast, Even Money, and The Business of Sports. All available at Apple Podcasts, rosstucker.com, or wherever podcasts can be found.